Some things in this world are just so hard to explain. It's better that people show you rather than just tell you. The problem is, though, is that even then, they may not believe you. If you've been on the internet even a little bit, you've probably seen plenty of videos about the Illuminati, folklore, conspiracy theories, the Mandela effect, etc. Many of these may just seem like entertainment to some, and granted, I believe most of it is. But some of it, I believe is to be true. You fall deep into these rabbit holes of conspiracy theories and different types of tales that people have told over the years, and you wonder, is some of it real? Or is it just a bunch of people regurgitating lies? Some people like to peek behind certain doors that aren't meant to be open. And once they discover what's inside, they really can't handle it. It's really hard to explain, because behind that door is something unsettling, disturbing even, but it's also kind of wonderful, kind of hopeful. Everything you ever thought that you knew, you actually found out was wrong. And everything you heard was a lie, is actually true. It's hard to explain, but you want to tell everybody about what you saw behind that door. It can be intimidating to open the door, but once you do, there's no going back. And that's control. See, I could tell you everything about it, but that would defeat the point. Besides, even if I told you, you wouldn't even believe me. So let us both peek beyond the door and go into the oldest house. The Federal Bureau of Control is a government agency that finds, research, and controls paranormal or paranatural phenomenon. These can be anything from a household item with unnatural abilities to a strange channel on the TV that some people remember seeing, but most don't know anything about it. The oldest house is home to the FBC and any items that they have found over the years. Typically, when I do a review, I will begin by introducing its characters. And the cool thing about Control is its setting is a main character. You see, the oldest house itself is a paranatural entity. The building moves and shifts frequently. Why exactly isn't fully understood. To most people, they don't even notice the building, despite being a giant skyscraper in the middle of New York. Only certain people that have some connection to the unknown, even notice it, let alone end up walking inside of it. From a gameplay perspective, the oldest house being a supernatural office building allows for a mixture of familiar and unknown wonders. The greatest achievement for me is the actual layout of the building. If you've ever been in an office building, everything that you know to be in one is here. They have a cafeteria, bathrooms, elevator, basements, of course offices, and even rec rooms for the employees. This place really feels like a home to hardworking everyday people. They even added a pneumatic tube system, which you commonly would see in buildings like banks and maybe even some hospitals. I always thought these were pretty cool when I was a kid, anytime we went to the bank. But just having this here in this game just reminded me of that time. It actually shows you how old school this office design is. Another brilliant touch is the addition of signs and directories. Control, in a way, reminds me of a Metroidvania. Doors are often locked behind key cards, and knowing where to go can be helpful, so you don't find yourself running into dead ends. Most games just give you a plain old map, and yes, Control does that as well. But adding signs not only makes the place feel like a real office building, but it doubles as an added gameplay element. You see, instead of just pulling out my map, I decided to actually just read these signs and directories to see if this will work in the same way. And of course, it does. And by doing this, it added a whole new level of immersion for me. Having to read signs gave me a sense of accomplishment that a simple map just wouldn't be able to do. I think we've all been lost inside of some hospital, government building, maybe even a mall, and the only way we could figure out our way around is by reading directories and the signs. Bringing this experience to a video game just shows how much they wanted this to seem like a real place, something that we can actually imagine is a real building in the middle of New York. The oldest house being an office space, there's bound to be tons of junk everywhere. The devs decided to make many things in this game destructible. The walls break and crack. Paperwork flies during gun battles. And everything about an office space is flipped upside down here. When you think of an office space, places like these are known to be well kept and tidy. So adding in all this level of destruction actually reminds me of a salt and sugar combination. These two things clash to make something very beautiful. And this setting plays on an intrusive thought that we commonly have, of wanting to destroy what is put together. And what better place to do that in than a government office building? And trust me, ever since Jesse FADEN, our lead protagonist, has arrived, nothing about the FBC has been the same. Jessie finds herself in the bureau. Upon arriving, she finds the place to be empty, with only a lone janitor there to guide her. She's led to the director's office. Director Trench is found dead with a mysterious gun left near his body. Once Jessie gets a hold of this gun, things get even weirder. She gets in contact with the entity known as the board. And upon completing a test, she becomes the new director. After being thrown into this new position of power that she didn't ask for, the employees of the bureau begin to attack her. They seem to be possessed by something that Jessie dubs the hiss. Jessie originally came to the bureau to find her long-lost brother. She was guided by her friend. This friend, being named Polaris, is a being of some kind. Some might even say a spirit. Polaris has the power to give Jessie the ability to destroy the hiss and resist its attacks. All of this can be quite confusing. Yet, it's that confusion, that unsettling feeling of wanting to know more, but being cautious of what you might find around the corner, that Control's story uses, and it lives and dies on this hill. If you've ever looked into conspiracy theories, Illuminati videos, flat earth, Mandela effect, or anything dealing with the unknown, Control plays with these themes and executes perfectly that weird curiosity that we all have for the things that we don't understand. To dive deep into a rabbit hole that, while we may be afraid of what's on the other side, we risk our sanity just to see if there's anything there. Control has a sense of style that most games today seem to be lacking in. Its storytelling, of course, is told through traditional cutscenes, but they also have live action videos that play on projectors and monitors. These tell you about what the Bureau was up to before the hiss attack. The acting here is way beyond what you would find in a typical video game too. These characters come to life, and anytime the game braked to show me a video, I would stop everything I was doing just to watch one. For those who don't know, Control was made by the same people who made Alan Wake and Quantum Break. And it's funny because Quantum Break had its own TV series that went alongside the game. So in a way, these live action videos is almost like the developers learning from their past mistakes and infusing the two together instead of making them separate entities. Jessie also has these visions that play while you're walking around the bureau. Again, fundamentally, these do the same thing as a cutscene would, but the dev's decision to get creative not only shows passion for what they wanted to make, but it was a treat for me as the player. There are other videos and data logs you could find that add more to the story and lore. Being an office building, it's actually kind of genius when you think about it, because in most games, a random paper with optional information may seem out of place, but here you expect nothing but paperwork and files to be found full of information that the player could read. Again, the immersion is extremely high in Control. Sticking with the style, Control uses lighting and colors in a hypnotic type of way. Entering a dark room with a well-placed light adds to the unsettling nature of Control. The game isn't necessarily horror, but its lighting system makes you question what you might see around each corner and makes you feel cautious as you do. The game is outright beautiful. The bright reds and blues clash on my screen, and the lighting reminds me of something from an Alien movie. Not the aliens that you're probably thinking of, but you know, the classical UFO type scenes where it would be a pitch black country field and you would just see the bright light from a UFO shining down. That level of brightness is oftentimes found in its lighting system with these dark rooms as contrast. The enemies glow bright red as well, and upon defeat, burst into a vapor of mist. Jessie herself eludes some level of style that I actually find very appreciative in today's more bland character design. Despite her social awkwardness, she's a badass when it comes to combat. The way she stands and poses with authority when she shoots her gun, it gets me every single time. It makes me wonder why more games don't have characters with cool poses like this game does. Since we're already talking about gun poses and whatnot, we might as well talk about the combat. Control is a third-person shooter with a mixture of supernatural powers. The gun variety is limited, but I actually think this is a good thing. You see, nothing in here overlaps itself, meaning every option has a purpose and nothing here gets replaced by another. Shooting is very satisfying, and by default, there is no aim assist. So that makes shooting more precise, and although you can turn on more aim assist, I would actually recommend you keep it off. This adds to Control's overall challenge, and thankfully, unlike most story-driven games, Control strikes a balance between being fun and challenging rather than focusing so much on the story that the developers decide to make the game easy. Jessie's powers are a nice addition as well, and seeing as her gun doesn't reload like a normal weapon would, during these times, having the ability to levitate objects and throw them at your enemies comes in handy. Jessie can also levitate herself and slam down on her enemies. The Hiss have possessed your fellow Bureau members, so why not return the favor and take control of them so you can have someone fight along your side. There's also a leveling and customization system. As you progress, you can upgrade Jessie's powers and gun, adding modifiers to her weapon and her person. Now, in the beginning, this may not seem important, but I recommend you do not ignore this system. The game increases in difficulty as you play, and how you build Jessie can really be the difference between life and death. There is an RNG system when it comes to what you can get, but thankfully resources are plentiful and you can always re-roll for better modifiers on your weapons and person. Exploration, as mentioned, is another key element of Control's gameplay. The oldest house is full of secrets and puzzles that take you off the beaten path. Searching every corner could lead to extra lore, and sometimes you might even find entirely new quests. Speaking of quests, Control has a handful of side quests. Instead of overwhelming you with too many quests, Control opts for less is more. The side quests here are fun and take you to places you haven't been, rewarding you with deeper character interactions, boss fights, lore, and modifiers for Jessie. There are repeated quests that you can trigger whenever you want to have something to do while you're wandering around the Bureau. But it's very clear that these are designed as never-ending quests, something like busy work, if you will, but again, shooting the enemies in this game is so much fun, I wouldn't really say that it's a waste of time, something you could just do along your journey. But if you really like the combat, at a certain point in the game, you unlock this expedition mode. These are challenge runs that handicap you with a debuff, and you must beat the 4 challenges and final boss before the time runs out. This is the best place to find high-end modifiers to turn Jessie into a beast. It's a fun, inoffensive way to provide the player a way to continue playing Control practically forever without feeling like it's something you must do in your playthrough. Seeing as I'm playing the Ultimate Edition, I have both major DLCs. These take place after the main story, so don't worry about accidentally triggering them. The Foundation takes you underneath the oldest house. A key member of the Bureau has went missing and Jessie must find them. Down this rabbit hole, you find more about the Bureau, the board, and the oldest house. Gameplay here is mostly the same, except Jessie gains new powers. There are these rocks that she's able to interact with, using them as traps or platforms. The new enemies down here hit harder than ever before, so using these traps is a must. Turning the rocks into spikes, or even destroying the platforms beneath their feet. Both ways are beneficial to the player with these new hard-hitting enemies. The second DLC links the world of Control with that of Alan Wake. Now, as you can tell, I really haven't been that detailed when it came to the story, as I don't want to spoil anything about Control. And, of course, I can't really be that detailed here with the Alan Wake connection. Just know that these games are linked, and by playing both the main game and the DLC, you will see exactly how. Gameplay is mostly the same as the base game, but it does add the lighting mechanic found in Alan Wake. Staying out of the darkness and using bright lights in order to shine the light on enemies is what you'll be doing in this DLC, which is very similar to what you did in the original Alan Wake. And seeing as Control has a brilliant lighting system, this makes this DLC shine even brighter. After completing the 2 major DLCs in the main campaign, there's plenty of extra content to be found. Side quests you miss, extra lore that you haven't found, and of course you can always run through the expedition mode as many times as you want to make Jesse even more powerful. One of the best things about Control though is how in the end you actually get to interact with the characters that you met along the way, and the story actually changes as if time has passed on. Without spoiling anything, I encourage you, if you do play Control, to run through the bureau multiple times in areas you already visited and see how things have changed and how Jesse may comment on different things that have happened over the years. As a kid, I grew up watching Illuminati videos on YouTube, and I always found myself drawn to these types of things. We all can agree we live in a very strange world. We know some things about it, but to be honest, there's so much more we don't know that makes us wonder. Control is, in a lot of ways, those conspiracy theory videos I grew up watching in video game form. It draws you in with the question, and once you're in, you don't even care for an answer. The question is oftentimes greater than the answer. To even begin to question, you have to have a foundation. You have to know or wonder if something should be questioned to begin with. An answer is great, but once a question is answered, it loses its wonder, its spark. So if you ask me, should you play Control? Well, why don't you tell me?
You are a worm through time. The thunder song distorts you. Happiness comes. Like pearls below.
Dad says my mama went missing in action. She walked into the city and didn't come back. I don't know what missing in actions is, but I sure wish someone would find her.
I'll help you look, Topher. We'll find your mama together.